Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. The Prophet ﷺ was attacked by Quraysh, his own family members. And just really imagine what that means. Back in the day, this is pretty serious stuff. This is your family. And they had a code back then that everybody followed. Your family is your family. You die for them, you bleed for them. Yet Quraysh attacked the Prophet ﷺ in the most immature ways. They mocked him, they ridiculed him, they tried killing him, they killed many of his followers. And this was going on for over 2 decades. Yet, what did the Prophet ﷺ do when he finally opened Mecca? He entered ﷺ with his head down in humility. His head was so down that his beard was actually touching his stomach in humility. And he entered saying, whoever puts down their arms is safe. Whoever enters their home is safe. Whoever is in Abu Sufyan's home, Abu Sufyan, who was the leader of Quraysh, the leader of the anti-prophet movement for several years, whoever is in Abu Sufyan's home is safe. Everybody is safe from the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because he forgave. He is a forgiving man ﷺ. No one said anything bad about the Prophet ﷺ, attacked him, and asked for forgiveness, except that he forgave them ﷺ. And many times, even before asking for forgiveness, the Prophet ﷺ forgave them. But imagine for a moment if the Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca with his army, clearly capable of destroying Quraysh. And he actually fulfilled that, like what many countries, many armies do. They enter and they kill, they pillage, they burn down everything out of sheer evil. Imagine if the Prophet ﷺ did that. What would have been the result? You would have this ongoing cycle of viciousness, of hatred towards one another. Sooner or later, those very descendants of those Arabs who were killed by the Prophet, if they had been killed by the Prophet, sooner or later they're going to revolt. And we as human beings, we need to understand that forgiveness, letting things go, letting go of the past, is a necessary part towards building anything worth building. There needs to be a point where we just stop. Okay, let's just put down arms. Let's put down the grudges so that we can go forward. But a society divided is a society that holds grudges. A family divided is a family that holds grudges. A family that's falling apart is a family that doesn't know how to forgive one another. So part of building the Muslim family is to forgive and to move on. And we know the reward of forgiveness. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the most difficult scenarios, forgive. What's more difficult than someone coming and slandering your daughter falsely and with complete lewdness and explicitity, saying that your daughter did something very inappropriate that she didn't do? What's more difficult than that? Yet, despite that, Allah tells Abu Bakr, when his daughter was slandered, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. Forgive and move on. Turn the page. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. It's exactly what he did. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. So if we want a strong family, then we need to develop this skill. And yes, it's a skill. The skill of forgiving and just moving on. Husband is going to say things that hurt the feelings of the wife. And the wife is going to say things that hurts the feelings of the husband. And the father and the mother, the parents are going to do things that hurt the feelings of the children. And the children are going to do things that hurt the feelings of their parents. And with siblings. And all of this is going to happen. We know this. But a strong family is a family that has developed the skill, the maturity to forgive and to move on. It's not only part of Islam, it's also part of our well-being. I mean, studies show that forgiveness is linked to mental health outcomes such as reduced anxiety, reduced depression, and reduced major psychiatric disorders, as well as fewer physical health symptoms and lower mortality rates. You want to be healthy? Part of that is letting go. Also, forgiving frees you from the shackles of the past. I think a lot of people who maybe legitimately, for good reason, they are upset with someone, they hold that grudge, they don't realize that that grudge, that very grudge, is hindering their own ability to live life. In fact, the person that they have a grudge towards is essentially indirectly dictating this person's life. It's a disaster. Let it go. The Prophet ﷺ let it go. And because he let it go, he was able to look towards the future rather than be shackled by the past and to continue to be worried by the past. Let it go. And what can we do to really improve this skill of ours, to build that skill of forgiveness? Well, number one, remember the reward. Remember the reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ عَفَى وَأَصْلَحَ فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Whoever forgives, and not only forgives, they reconcile their relationship with the person they're upset with. They go beyond, they go a step beyond. Allah says their reward is with Allah. You know, in Ramadan and fasting, the Prophet ﷺ says that Allah says in a sacred hadith, الصِّيَامُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. Fasting is for me, and I'm going to reward for it. Take this as a general principle. When our religion says, Allah says, I'm going to reward, and doesn't specify what the reward is, it means it's a massive reward that words cannot put and cannot describe. You cannot describe this with words. فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Your reward is with Allah. It's going to be massive. So remember the reward. Isn't it better for you, not only for your well-being in this life, not only for your own strength, but in the afterlife, to see in your book of deeds that you forgave? Imagine how much reward is going to be there for the Prophet ﷺ because he forgave Quraysh. How many people accepted Islam from Quraysh because the Prophet ﷺ was such a forgiving man? It is unimaginable. Forgive not for them, for you. Forgive not for them, because do it for Allah, because it pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing that can help us build the skill of forgiveness is the following hadith. مَا زَادَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا بِعَفْوٍ إِلَّا عِزًّا. Allah, or the Prophet ﷺ teaches us that whenever you forgive someone, Allah increases you in dignity. He increases you in status. It makes you stronger. And there is a spiritual side to it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the barakah of izz. But there's also the practical, the logical side of it. When you forgive, you're able to focus more on yourself rather than your mind being preoccupied on someone else and what you want to do to someone else or what someone else did to you. So forgive and know that every time you forgive your spouse, every time you forgive your children, every time you forgive your parents, your siblings, the end result is that it increases you in dignity. We love the Prophet. We adore the Prophet. Even non-Muslims have so much respect for the Prophet. Why? Because of how forgiving he was, alayhi salatu wasalam. And finally, there does come a point, brothers and sisters, where you're obligated to forgive. You can't just hold grudges forever. When is that scenario, or what is that scenario? Well, when someone comes to you sincerely and says, so-and-so, I did you wrong, please forgive me. At that point, you have to forgive. See, when Abu Bakr upset Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, Abu Bakr made Umar mad. Umar, he was upset, and so Abu Bakr went back to Umar and said, Umar, I really upset you, please forgive me. Umar said, I'm not going to forgive you. I'm never going to forgive you. Abu Bakr went to the Prophet, and Abu Bakr is upset. I went to you, Umar, asking for forgiveness, and you didn't forgive me. Abu Bakr goes to the Prophet and complains. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, kind of recollecting what he just did, he said, Abu Bakr asked me for forgiveness, I didn't forgive him. I feel bad now. Let me go find him and say, I accept. He finds Abu Bakr by the Prophet, and the Prophet ﷺ says, will you not leave my companion alone? This is the man who believed in me when all of you disbelieved in me. This is a man who, as soon as I told him about the religion, he accepted, where all of you rejected me at first and you had to think about it. Will you not leave my friend alone? The Prophet ﷺ is he's criticizing Umar. He asked you for forgiveness. He sincerely asked you for forgiveness. You have to let it go. And so if someone comes to you sincerely, if they're insincere, they're playing games, that's a different story. But if they sincerely come to you asking for forgiveness, then at that point, you have to forgive the person. Or else, now the blame is on you. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this skill, this characteristic of forgiveness, this prophetic characteristic in our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us forgiving people. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Thank you for watching. If you're finding benefit in these videos, remember that every day throughout the month of Ramadan, we'll be releasing a new video. Our goal is to build a stronger family, especially in our times today when the family unit is really dissolving. It's so important for us as Muslims and to serve as a role model for all of humanity. Share these videos, like, drop a comment, and we'll see you at the next video. Bismillah.